Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off this video with a story about a guy who thought he could pull off the ultimate retail heist by faking a warrant. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Give me free guitars or your boss goes to jail. Background. Back in my sophomore year of college, I used to work for a pretty well-known music store in the U.S. Think giant acoustic guitar as the logo. This was my first retail job, and just like any other retail establishment, there were always people who would come in and try to get free stuff from some dumb way. This is one of those. This happened in my first week of working. I was working in what was the accessories counter. Basically, if you wanted a pedal for your guitar, new strings, guitar picks, cables, etc., etc. It was probably about 11 in the morning, and I was the only one on the floor. Leaving the new guy on his own is always the smartest idea, right? I was bored out of my mind already, so I decided to clean up and organize and make the space look presentable and make a good impression in my new workspace. As I'm doing my own thing, a customer walks up to my counter and asks if he can speak to the manager. I don't think anything of it, and since I was new, I wasn't exactly sure how to work the intercom in the store to call him over. I asked the customer to wait near the counter so I can go get the manager. Unbeknownst to me, however, the store manager had left about 30 minutes before to go to a doctor's appointment, but the customer service manager was in at that time. I tell him there's a customer wanting to talk to the manager. The CSM gives me a "I already got to deal with something" kind of look and follows me back to the counter. We get back to the counter, and the guy who asked for the manager introduces himself by his first name, and the CSM does the same. For anyone unfamiliar, the customer service manager is in charge of the day-to-day customer interactions, while the store manager is in charge of everything else in the store. So in this instance, both the CSM and I thought that this was a customer interaction issue that the SM wouldn't need to be a part of. The guy goes on to tell us what he's looking for, and we're like, okay, makes sense. You came in here to buy. Then he drops the line, "I have a warrant out for SM's arrest and want him to give me 4 guitars and 3 amps to not arrest him." We both were taken aback by this statement, but took it with a grain of salt. We informed him that if this were the case, he would have to come back at a later date and actually talk with the SM. He didn't like that answer. He, in a very firm and angry tone, informed us that because of our actions, SM is definitely going to jail. After this guy left and SM came back from his doctor's appointment, we asked if he had any warrants out, and he said, "No, but if I did, my wife would have already turned me in." I never saw a warrant guy again while I worked there, but he definitely wasn't the craziest guy I dealt with in my time at this store. To apply a little logic, only someone with law enforcement authority can arrest someone based on a warrant, so either the guy was a cop or he wasn't. If he's not, it's a felony to pretend to be, particularly while demanding goods on that basis. If he is, soliciting a bribe is a more serious crime. The only proper response is to look him right in the eye and call 911. And our second story. Karen tries to enforce fake retail rules on a former employee. Today's characters. Karen, entitled customer. Bob, Karen's poor schmuck of a husband, doesn't do much at all. Blackbeard, manager, known for being a no-crap-talking guy. Me. Backstory. I was a bookseller for almost a decade before I left for a high-paying 9-to-5. I loved my job, but after I left, I still frequented the bookstores in the chain to browse shelves, check out new titles, and catch up with old coworkers. The story. I'm in my old store, which is located near a number of posh neighborhoods. It had been 3 or 4 years since I left, and the staff had gone through its 6th turnover. Only a small handful of employees I worked with were still there. I was in jeans, my university sweatshirt with my purse over my shoulder, and my cell phone out with earbuds in. I had bands like Five Finger Death Punch, Die Antwood, and In This Moment lined up in my ears, very clearly a customer. There was no uniform, just business casual clothes with a lanyard holding a name tag. I'm perusing through the sci-fi fantasy section already with 2 books selected. I'm looking for a few more. My limit's 5 books or no more than $60. Limits, LOL. One of the employees, someone I didn't know, comes up and asks if I need help. I tell him that I used to work there and I'm looking for a couple more books. I describe what I like and he recommends a few good titles. We chat more about the genre, the classic authors and such. I thank him and he goes on his way, leaving me with 2 new books in hand. I move on to the mystery section and grab an empty basket to put my books in. And then I feel it. The finger. A few pokes from a bony finger tipped with a long acrylic nail and the words, Karen. Excuse me? There she is. Dark-rooted blonde bobbed hair, 3/4 yoga pants, matching workout top, pristine white sneakers, wristlet purse, and the latest iPhone. Her husband's a good-looking, tired Ken style of a man with his hands in his pockets. Me, taking out an earbud. What? Karen, that's not how you greet a customer. So rude. Me, look who's talking. Karen, what did you say to me? Me, what do you want? And I don't work here, by the way. Karen, you do. I heard you chatting with that other employee over there. I need this book. She presents her iPhone, which indeed has a picture of a book. Me, I don't work here, lady. Back the hell up. Karen, what did you say to me? How dare you? You're required to help me. I'm a paying customer. Me, I'm not required to do anything. I turned my back on her and moved farther down the aisle, hoping she'd take the hint. Nope. Instead, she grabs the back of my hoodie and yanks me back. Me, what the F is your problem, lady? I don't work here. I'm in jeans and a sweatshirt. I have my purse. I was listening to music, for F's sake. Karen, I know you work here. I've seen you here before working. Me, I used to work here years ago, but I don't anymore, so back up. Karen, you're still obligated to help me. It's part of your code. Me, say what? Karen, your code. You have to help me or I'll speak to your manager and get you banned and fired. I'm staring at this bleach blonde lunatic, then at her husband with an, is she serious with this crap look? He can't even look at me. Me, thinking about Reddit here. Fine, do it. I'll get a manager. Let's see who gets in trouble. I flag down an employee and ask for a manager. When they ask why, I tell them we just need a manager. The employee shrugs, gets on their portable store phone and calls for a manager. The manager, who we'll call Blackbeard, arrives. Blackbeard, hi, what seems to be the problem? Karen, of course, starts spewing, yammering on about how I insulted her, called her names, and refused to assist her. She doesn't shed a tear, just pure rage. Blackbeard, ma'am, please, there's no need for that kind of language or volume. He turns to me. Miss, can you tell me what happened? I gave him my version, trying to hide my smirk. Blackbeard, he's staring at Karen now like she's an idiot. Ma'am, she doesn't work here. I can help you find your book, but you can't go around harassing people, be they employees or customers, even if they used to work here. Karen said some other foul things. Blackbeard, ma'am, you have 3 choices. 1, pipe down and I'll help you out. 2, keep going and I'll have you removed and banned. Or 3, just leave. Your choice. Karen and Blackbeard had a staring match that lasted a good 15 seconds. Karen left with a scowl and Blackbeard and I shared a small high five. I finished up my shopping and Blackbeard let me use his employee discount. I went to a restaurant next, ate, and read as I enjoyed a cheesecake dessert. I wondered what kind of code Karen was talking about and where the hell she'd heard it. The end. Well, some people think other people aren't people. They're just things that exist for their benefit and service. To that sort of Karen, you're not a person, you're an NPC, non-player character. Those people in video games like the shopkeeper who's always open in the same place and never changes and just does what they're ordered. And our last story. $1 Million Revenge. How I stopped my neighbor's harassment. My elderly mother's been living quietly and peacefully in her apartment for decades. It was the home I grew up in, a place full of cherished memories, even if the building itself was old and modest at the time. Over the years, though, the neighborhood underwent massive changes, turning from a humble, overlooked area into a hotspot for wealthy buyers and aggressive developers. As gentrification took hold, our building converted to a co-op, allowing original residents like my mom to buy their apartments at a significantly reduced rate, a lifeline for many long-term tenants. However, the shift wasn't without its problems. The influx of new money brought a radically different set of values and expectations. Soon, our quiet home turned into a constant construction site, with millionaires renovating apartments extensively, often causing noise disturbances and even structural damage to the older units. The monthly maintenance fees skyrocketed to fund all the luxury amenities that these new wealthy newcomers demanded, making my mother's once affordable home nearly as expensive as renting elsewhere. Then came our nightmare, the next-door neighbor. This woman, wealthy, powerful, and politically influential within the building's new hierarchy, decided my quiet elderly mother was in her way. Almost immediately after moving in, this neighbor began her relentless campaign of complaints, targeting my mom for every trivial inconvenience imaginable. It was evident her real aim was eviction, hoping to force us to sell the apartment to her at a low price so she could merge it with her own unit and create the massive luxury space she coveted. The complaints from this neighbor piled up quickly, each more invasive and outrageous than the last. Soon I found myself dragged into a bitter conflict, receiving aggressive and intrusive emails, sometimes even at my workplace. To protect my mother from this constant harassment and to ensure our legal footing, I had no choice but to hire a lawyer. Every angry email from this neighbor now had to be reviewed, documented, and responded to carefully, which led to significant stress and mounting legal bills. Unfortunately, the building's board was largely controlled by people aligned with the new money residents, and despite management's private sympathies, they often bent to the demands of this troublesome neighbor just to quiet her incessant agitation. My mom was isolated as most of the other original residents had either moved away or passed on, leaving her without many allies to speak up in her defense. Seeing no end in sight, I decided it was time to play hardball. I placed my mom's apartment on the market, but not at a price anyone could casually afford or justify. $1 million, firm, non-negotiable. There's no legal restriction on pricing your property as high as you wish, and our strategy was simple: set a price so absurdly high that nobody, least of all this bullying neighbor, would even consider paying it. The neighbor was furious. Her careful plans to oust my mother, buy the apartment cheaply, and expand her luxury living space were completely derailed. Without the option to cheaply acquire our home, her motivation to continue the harassment quickly fizzled out. In the end, our defiant move effectively neutralized the neighbor's harassment campaign. Though it was stressful, costly, and deeply unpleasant, we stood our ground. My mother now lives in peace again, undisturbed by the entitlement and greed of the wealthy newcomers. And as for the troublesome neighbor, she stuck exactly where she started, unable to push us out, facing the reality that sometimes entitlement alone isn't enough to get what you want. F entitled rich people. The way gentrification shoves out longtime residents is disgusting. But you played their own game against them and turned entitlement into frustration. Now your mom gets to enjoy her home without that neighbor getting what she wanted. The perfect kind of payback, one that cost them everything and gets you exactly what you wanted. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.